good day. Happy New Year. And today is a very, very special day. Not only is it a new year, which we hope um, you had a nice transition and you had a good New Year's party, New Year's Eve with friends, family, or alone, coding with code. And today is day 100 of 100 days of code, a big milestone. And who better to celebrate this milestone with than with Leon Andersen? Leon, how are you doing?
Hello, hello. Very, yeah, I don't know that it's already 100 days. At the same time, it felt like 100 days. So I don't know, not surprised and surprised at the same time. Yeah, I enjoy every minute, but I unless I am stressed to get something some code running uh, on a deadline. So we how's it called? We shifted our streaming time today multiple times because I'm wrestling with some bugs. But yeah, overall, it's a lot of fun. And today I went further in the Next.js tutorial, in the original one by nextjs.org. And yeah, almost finished it. Or yeah, I mean, I basically finished it, but I'm still trying to figure out where the issues are. So maybe I didn't finish it yet because I didn't find the issues yet. And yeah, great thing which I also found out is the API routes section in this tutorial, which I will probably need for my subscription form, if I'm not mistaken. Did I get that right?
100%, yes.
So that's great that I found a resource for that as well. I'm curious how fast this will go, but yeah, today went deeper into the whole get static paths, get static props, yeah, main mechanics of Next.js, and made some progress in understanding there. Was a lot of fun, but also takes a little while to wrap my head around, to be honest. And yeah, that I mean, maybe we can go through some questions today. So if you go to the dynamic routes page, and then maybe 4 or 5, yeah, if you scroll further, yeah, this one, I'm like a bit confused. Like, okay, if I'm following the tutorial, it probably works, but I don't really understand why. Because in this get static paths function, I don't see what's actually happening. I only see that we're basically importing get all post IDs from a utility file, basically, where we have some functions like this one exactly. Some components basically, no, some functions from there that basically translate some of the data that we have in our markdown folder. or markdown file folder. And if you scroll down again, we basically import it and then define the variable path as this data, as these IDs, or probably an array of IDs, if I understood it correctly. And then we just return the variable. I'm like, okay, why? Like, is anything happening with the variable in this function, or do we just return it as we like? Why do we have to wrap it inside of that function? If like, why can't we just use paths directly? And also, where does this return to? Like, what's the next step? Like, where does that get taken in? I couldn't find it out in the next steps of the tutorial yet, where the exact links are between the different steps. So for like, if we go onto the next page, and scroll down a little bit further. No, on the next page. You're on the page before, I think. That's weird. Okay. Anyway, yeah, 6. Page 6 is probably the one that I'm looking for. Okay, so where are we? No, that's not it. Further, please. Then I think it's even one further. Where is it? No, there's like a, maybe on page 5. There's a further. Yeah, up a little bit, and there is pages/posts/id GitHub link. Exactly, that's what I was looking for. Maybe a little bit more zoom. So here we basically, in line 16, we have what we looked at before with the paths and get all post IDs. And I don't see where paths is taken in after this. Like, what happens? Like, where does it get returned to? Like, and yeah, that's one question. And closely related probably is the get static props params prop, basically, or it takes in params as a prop, but I don't see where does it get params from. Like, where do we import it, or where is that claimed? And yeah, that's 2 questions of mine.
Got it. Yeah. So let's answer the first one first, because then we can answer the second one. And let's go back to the blog post real quick and go to page 4. And let's first look at this. So what is happening here? You're basically getting back an array from this function. And path is an array. And what we are returning here is an object with a key. This is the object shorthand notation word here. With a key path, and the value are basically what is inside this path as variable. So this is an array. So far, so good?
So we're basically just putting curly brackets around one array, or is there any further structuring of it?
Well, I think we need a little refresher on object shorthand notation. So let's say you have an array of paths, and for the sake of this demonstration, we're just gonna create an array with like random things here: full, bar, bus, this. And now we say function get path or not, and we return path. Right? Get path is now returning. We are opening a console here, and we're calling it console.log get path. With this get path. We're returning this, and then we're looking to the console. We're returning an object, right? And the object is a key, and the key is an array with whatever's in the area that we're returning here. Well, and then the second thing that is there is fallback false. So the second thing in the object is a key fallback with the value false. Right, so it's not like we're wrapping anything, we're returning an object from this function.
Yeah, but what's the difference like in utility of this? Like, okay, now I have an object, an array inside of an object, or
you have an array inside of an object under the key part. Yeah, that was the first thing that the first crucial piece of understanding what's happening here. Okay, well, let's look at the second piece. So the second piece is, what does this array look like? It looks like this, right? So we have an object, and like each of the elements in the array is an object, and each of the objects in the array has a params key, and hidden params, and the params key has an ID key with some value. And this already looks a lot like the second part of your question, which is like, where do these params come from? They actually come from this array. And if you remember, that static path was the function that tells Next.js which routes exist. And the shape that you just need to comply to, similar to how you need to comply to exporting this function here, how you need to comply to exporting with the default export, the actual React component. Those are all given by Next.js because the framework behind the scenes uses this. So Next.js actually tries to import from your pages file the getStaticPaths function and tries to call it. And then if it successfully can call it, it looks in the return value for a path key, and it looks for an array. And then it also looks that in that array, every element has a params key, and then it looks into which keys these params define and the name of the keys inside of the params. So let's go back here to make this. And then the name of the keys inside of the params needs to align with the dynamic route up here. And it does, right? We have for each post an ID here, and here we are defining an ID for each post. So let me do a quick break, and everything's clear so far?
Yes. But why do I have to return it? Why can't I just use const paths, const static paths equals paths inside of curly brackets?
Because no, that's just the way that Next.js is designed, right? Like most people will not have a variable that is just available. Most people need to build up stuff, need to do calculations. So function is way more versatile, which is why the designers of Next.js decided to, even if you know the values, even if they are hard-coded, you still need to give them back in a function, because that is more versatile than requiring a constant, because you can always return hard-coded values using a function, but you can never return dynamic values using a constant.
So is there more stuff one can do with getStaticPaths than this, which is more dynamic?
Yes, for example, you can fetch an API, right? And that will always be asynchronous, that will always take time, that will always involve a function, and you wouldn't be able to do that with just a constant.
Okay, but you could fetch into a constant. I mean, not a constant into a let variable maybe, but could you fetch into a let variable?
It doesn't matter. The thing about it is that Next.js calls these functions doing specific when specific things happen, right? So the get static path and the get static props function are getting called during the build step, and that's why the design is like this, because Next.js has certain instructions, and then at some point it needs to get those values. Again, a constant would be possible here, but then you would not be able to fetch things, right? Because if you define a constant somewhere, how would Next.js know, okay, now I need to fetch the stuff here to populate it? Like it wouldn't make sense. And the same is for example, for the get server side props. That there I think it's even more obvious, right? When a request comes in, what if you define the constant somewhere, or even with that, it doesn't matter which keyword you use, and you define your values using a fetch function, then does the get server side props always take the same values? Like, how does it know that it needs to fetch new values? You know, that is the basic gist behind it.
But how does it know that it has to take new values this way?
Because that's how the Next.js guys programmed it. In Next.js, when you did in the build button, we can maybe even look into the open source repository of it. Let's just do it. Let's see if we can find it. Next.js, let me share this tab right here. We say Next.js GitHub. And then we go into the framework right here. And now we look for get static path, and we look for it to be executed. The path, this is undefined, will obviously be spammed with a ton of examples. Let's see, errors, examples, more examples. You know, documentation isn't to packages. Workshares, bold, that's also bolded. Test is closer. Examples, test, examples. We need something like a probably like a library. Test, integration, test packages, test. We hear something with build, but probably not correct. Test. It's alt have. Well, doesn't look like we can find it. It's probably just one piece of code, to be honest, that is executed. Yeah, I can't find it on the fly. Let's see if we can come up with an example. So basically, Next.js has like a build function, and similar to how you are learning, how you can iterate through all of your markdown files, Next.js iterates through all of the folders and routes in your pages directory. And then for each of those files, it tries to import or maybe even require the file, and you know the requires that works. I think it's like const like this. It's to require from whatever route we're on, like this, and then it takes the path function, and then it calls it. I mean, it gets that it path, right? So let's see it. Get static this, and then it for these it iterates through it, and then this is an area of something, or it takes the path, you know, and then it iterates through these, and creates routes for each, and then for each route, it fetches the props, also grabbing get static props. So it would also grab static props from here, and then basically call get static props with for each path. So something like path dot for each, and then we'll grab the columns from there, and like this, and like this is all pseudocode, but I hope this makes it a little bit clearer. And then we would say, hey, get static props, and it passes in rums, something like that.
Okay, so basically there's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes, and I don't have to understand why it happens as long as I use get static paths and get static props in the same file as dynamic route file, basically, with
Yeah.
with the component that renders it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you have to keep in mind. So it's like driving a car, right? You don't necessarily need to know how a V8 engine works to be able to drive a Porsche.
Yeah, it's just sometimes it's just I don't get like which parts I need to understand and which parts I don't need to understand, because I was like searching, okay, where is params coming from?
Would they
Okay, it's
understand that
coming.
now? Did you see that now?
I mean, params is inside of the paths object, paths array, but how it gets from that array inside of get static props is still like, I mean, yes, sometimes something behind the like it gets collected or grabbed and then iterated over, and then yeah, put into get static props behind the scenes. But why even put the how's it called, the prop of params inside of get static props in the first place? I mean, inside of the brackets, if you could just like if there's always if get static props is always just looking for params, then why don't or always in this case of dynamic routing, where you have where you have the combination of a component that renders get static paths and then get static props, like why do we even need to put the params prop inside of get static props if it could just know from the back end that and fetches it automatically anyway, or imports params into get static props anyway.
I'm sorry, I did not get that question.
So in line 24 we have params inside of get static props as a prop that's taking in params, and I'm wondering if all of that, like if params get imported into get static props anyways behind the scenes, then why do we even have to write it inside of those brackets?
You mean the curly brackets here?
The normal brackets around that. Why do we even have to import any prop into get static props if it's taking in params anyway automatically behind the scenes?
I think I still don't I mean, you need to tell it about what its params are, right? You need to tell it, hey, you are the get static props right now for ID full. You are now the get static props for ID bar or whatever. So you need to pass it something. Right? I don't know. Maybe I still don't understand the question, but
Yeah, I mean the params.id in line 25 makes sense that we use that, because behind the scenes params get imported into get static props. But like I mean, I guess they don't get imported into get static props, but params is available to get static props from behind the scenes, and yeah, then it makes sense to write params into or parse the write the prop params into the brackets to basically pass params from behind the scenes into it.
So I'm still a little bit confused about brackets, but let me try to answer this as far as I understand it. So get static props is a function, right? So in order to make it a function, even from the JavaScript syntax way, you need to give it these round brackets, and then it has to receive some kind of arguments. And Next.js smartly, because it's usually smart to do it that way, chose to go the quote-unquote named arguments route by passing in an object, and then you can just destructure the keys that you need instead of having to, having like a big list of parameters and then you only need the third one. So you write like you have 3 or 4 unused params, or not params, you have 3 or 4 unused arguments for this function, which is why it makes a lot more sense to pass in an object. It's just accidental that we're only using params here because there are other things being passed in here that you can use for different use cases too.
But also in this combination, like if there's a combination of a component that renders that basically renders the page and a component and get static paths, then get static props always has to take in params. Like, I don't know.
It gets params, but it gets much more, right? Like, I think maybe one thing that's also worth thinking about is this is one of the simplest use cases, right? But the API is designed in a way where it can also handle much more complex use cases because there's more stuff. Other things that you can return besides path and fallback here. And there are also other things that you can return here besides just props. So these APIs that are designed to obviously make these simple use cases super simple, but they also handle like use cases with more difficult requirements still very elegantly, which is the beauty around the beauty of this API.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I'm just used to having like when I see when reading code so far, I'm just used to when I see a prop somewhere, I'm used to see where that prop's coming from, written somewhere on the same page, and I don't see it yet. So I'm confused because it's behind the scenes. So in line 28 we have post data, and this basically gets we also see it in line 4. So in line 4 I know that this is coming from line 28. So this makes total sense. Like this is very like followable, and yeah, with the params I'm a bit confused. I mean I know now that it comes from behind the scenes, but I didn't.
Well, no, it's equivalently, it's only a little bit more obscured, right? Here you see the post data, and here you see it again. But actually, what you don't see here is that this is the part that is happening behind the scenes. These page props include the post data, and then they're spreading it into the component. And then similar, but that's maybe not as obvious that also happens behind the scenes because post data is here and post data is here. But similarly, the params are just in a different file, right? These paths are getting defined in this file right here, the lib one. So the lib or posts, and I think it's this function, similar to how the guide spells it out here, right? So just because it's not in the same file, you could technically define this function in that other file, and leave that comment there. And then you'd also quote unquote see the params in the same file, but people sometimes structure their code a little bit different to be able to clean things up.
Okay, yeah, it's just a pattern that I was used to always see the to always see where the prop is coming from in the same file, or at least in the component where when you pass into the component tag directly the params. And yeah, as I didn't explicitly see that here, that's just a pattern break. But yeah, I guess it's just because it's not visible directly doesn't mean it's not there.
Yeah, exactly. But that's an important thing about, I think that I struggled with for very long. It took me like 2 years or so to finally, because sometimes they are these things where it feels like magic. And what I love about React and Next.js and stuff, there's very little magic going on. So this magic that we're, quote unquote magic that we're seeing will be, yeah, it is rare. And so only like one thing where it's not immediately clear, but you can still see, okay, once you understand that the params come from here, that, oh, okay, so it's just in a different file, right? But I could technically take this function and also define it here and then just immediately use it here instead of importing it from here. And then I could also see, okay, all the params, these params are here in the same file. Other frameworks have a lot more magic than React, like Vue. And yeah, that was just something that was super confusing to me when I tried to use those other frameworks. And also even in React, like one of the basic lessons is that everything makes sense behind the scenes. So if something feels like magic, then it's just that there's maybe something not completely understood, or when there's a bug, then maybe something's just not right. But the computer is always logical. That's, I think, the main point I'm trying to make it.
Yes, I assumed that's why I was a bit. Yeah, I mean, you probably can't show everything at the same time all the time. So I guess that's just too much of too high of expectations of mine. But I mean, code readability, as far as I understand it, is an important param or important property of code quality. So I'm just confused when stuff is not obvious from reading through it. But I mean, now that I'm familiar with this case, I know it, and I guess, yeah, I guess you can't, as I said, you can't write everything all at once in perfect descriptive, in a perfectly descriptive way, and yeah, can you explain in the app file, because you showed that with the page props spread out, where does it get the page props from?
So page props are coming from the two functions that are passing in props. So get static props and get server-side props. What the exact step is not like where both get consolidated into the page props variable is done by Next.js behind the scenes. I can look for it in the code. Maybe we can
No,
find
that
it.
doesn't matter. I just didn't didn't know the connection between get static props and the page props gap. That's good to know.
Great.
I mean that also. I mean, I guess knowing that could have solved my params question immediately from the start.
Yeah, it's hard. Like it's hard to sometimes find that little puzzle piece that makes it click. I remember, I don't know if you shared it on screen or on stream, but also the thing about the children where you talk to ChatGPT, right, and it gave like weird answers, and then suddenly it said one sentence, and this one sentence makes sense. And that's just sometimes how it is, and it's hard for someone who codes for a long time to understand. Okay, what is the exact puzzle piece that is missing in the understanding?
So just to clear things up, or a clarification question, get static props or page props come from get static props. What is where are the static routes, or where are the get static page paths being passed to?
So page props comes from either get static props or get server-side props. And then get static path is just a way of telling Next.js, hey, this dynamic route here, right, where you don't know the exact file path, the paths that exist are the ones listed in the array that you are returning. So you're saying here, hey, Next.js, I have two routes, one for the path /id /ssg -ssr and one for the path /pre-rendering. So these don't have anything to do with the props of any component. They are defining the paths, and they only then indirectly have something to do with the props of a component, because you can then use the params for the given route to tell the route, hey, for the route with the path examples were here /ssg and /ssr. So for the path /ssg-ssr, fetch the post data, and then you just put in the post data for the specific post under the specific URL. And then you go ahead and for the other route, for the route with the path pre-rendering, you again path in this pre-rendering, you call get post data, you grab the post data for that other blog post, and then you pass that to the other page for that other route.
So the paths are they accessed by some kind of algorithm in the background that creates the individual URLs then?
Yes, and it works a little bit like we do here, right? It also takes into account the shape of the dynamic route. So basically, the Next.js behind the scenes sees, okay, I have a file here with the name where the dynamic parameter is ID, because I see a file where there are square brackets, and inside of the square bracket, the string is what it extrapolates. And then it calls the getStaticPath function from this file. And then for the getStaticPath, it basically extracts, that's why it's called getStaticPath, it extracts the relevant paths from the different params, right? And it knows what to call it because it knows that the string is ID, for example, in this case, based on the name of the file. So it deliberately goes into the params, and as we can see here, the params, as we should, right, have defined a key of ID and then the value with the path of the route path. And the next day it's like, okay, I know on the params from the get static path of this specific file, I need inside of the params to look for an ID key. And then I create a new path for that with exactly that name of this key. And then I pass all of the params again to the get static props function. And this fetches me the props for the page. This is route or path for the page. And then with get static props, we get the props for the page. And then we pass that whole, and then the default export of that file is the component, right? And then it passes the props and the component in here. And that then renders the relevant page.
Okay, I think I understand the flow of information better this way. Yeah, I guess I have to repeat that in my head tomorrow as well. Reading through the code once again, but yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. I mean, this is also just one part of Next.js. It's a very important part, the dynamic routing, but luckily I feel like I understand the rest or much of the rest, so it feels good to have like some foundation to understand it off, and yeah, looking forward to understanding it in a way where I feel solid about it, and then also implementing the API tomorrow, the API fetching, or is it an API fetching? No, it's an API basically creating an API endpoint where I can send subscription data to into my own subscription database. Yeah, looking forward to that. And I guess tomorrow starts another 100 days of code, or how do we want to call it?
I mean, yeah, we can go in hundreds increments, why not?
Shall we call it another 100 days of code, or shall we call it 200 days of code?
I think 200 makes sense. The other one would be a little bit confusing once we get to the next iteration of 100 days of code.
Okay, but maybe people could think that we did 100 days of code and then from there 200 days, but it doesn't matter anyways.
We can say it's had day 101 of 100 to 200 days of code.
Or we could say tomorrow is day 1 of 100 days of code 2.0.
Sure, that will not be confusing, and people will not think that this is the second person not going to this.
That's true. Okay, then tomorrow, I guess, day 101 of 200 days of code. And also on stream accountability 100 days of gym.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's go.
Then thank you everyone for watching. This has been day 100 of 100 days of code, but don't worry, we ain't going anywhere. We're here to stay for the long run. You know, every step of the way of this epic journey that we're doing here. And if you're watching the recording, join us live. And if you've watched live, thank you for watching. This has been day 100 of 100 days of code with
Leon Andersen, who also had day 0 of 100 days of gym today. And my awesome mentor.
out of nil from 10x death, but I just want to say that it was actually day 2 of the 100 days of gym.
No, don't tell it. Those were just beta days, because we need to align the numbers at least in the range of hundreds.
Okay, sweet. So yeah, then tomorrow's day 2 of 100 days of gym 2.
No, no, tomorrow is day 1 of 100 days of gym.
Oh yeah, you're right. I'm bummed.
All right. Then let's go. Let's pump it up. Always be coding and pumping. And until tomorrow.
Only cars, fix bugs.